I debated about whether or not to do the top 10 today. But in the end, I went, you know what, Shannon, you've brought them this far. Let their brains melt down seeing what the top 10 is. Number 10. Not everything that I watch is horror or science fiction. Tommy Boy is the second funniest movie I've ever seen. There's only one other comedy in the top 10. There's some dark humor in a couple of them, but this is pure comedy. Chris Farley was a tremendous loss for the Hollywood stars, and he is, Beverly Hills Ninja wasn't bad either. Beverly Hills Ninja though doesn't belong in the top, but it's still not a bad movie. It's kind of funny. And Chris Farley is genuinely one of the funniest people ever. And David Spade in the right situation is funny. David Spade, when he's in a not funny movie or his jokes aren't funny, it can be really painful to get through. But in Tommy Boy, it played to everything. It all fell into place with this movie, and the whole Callahan Auto Parts and all of it, and the whole way that the story went through. It's it is my favorite comedy, other than the other one in this top 10, which is just a hair better, but not by very much. As I said, in the 30s, we started getting into movies that I consider pretty much perfect, and ranking them is not easy. So there's number 10. I may not need a lot of description with these movies, especially Fight Club at 9. So if you're male, you love Fight Club. Fight Club is about fighting and bare knuckle brawling with friends, and then deciding to overthrow the world and create anarchy. Makes perfect sense. Now, if you pay attention to the end of the building and what they're trying to do, it doesn't make any sense and it wouldn't work. But at the same time, it's kind of a fun story, and Tyler Durden's not really a bad guy. He's just a guy. He's not a good guy. He's not a bad guy. He's just the guy. And that's kind of how I feel about Tyler Durden in general. I cannot describe enough how many wonderful moments there are in this movie, and that the pamphlet they put on the plane. I used to have that as my wallpaper, and I think I had it printed out somewhere too, and I used to show it to people. That anytime somebody said, "Well, what do you think's funny?" This, and I'd show them the pamphlet they put on the plane. Every image on the plane, and when they're doing Project Mayhem and they're running around and they're putting up billboards and everything. Yeah, I had all of those saved in my computer because I thought all of them were hilarious. Did you know you can use motor oil to fertilize your lawn? Didn't know that. That's fantastic. Thank you for the information. The idea of doing something like that, it's sort of like when I see graffiti and it's just your standard swear words or here's our name. Yeah. But when it's creative, or when it's funny, or when it's something like this, and there have been times where I've seen graffiti and it's spelled wrong, and I've thought about getting a can of spray paint and fixing their spelling, and just put SP and a question mark, and then underneath you spelled this wrong, please fix it. Thank you, and a little happy face, like, and the burning happy face in a building. Like there's things they do in this movie that I'm like, you know what, that's actually pretty clever and pretty funny. And Project Mayhem isn't designed to kill people, and is not designed with an evil intent, really. Although you get the feeling there's something sinister under the surface. Tyler Durden's just awesome, just amazing, and it's one of those movies that when it does the big reveal towards the end, I'm like, wait, how did I not see that coming? And then you go back and you watch it over and over again, and it doesn't make the movie lose any of its amazing feeling just because you know the twist. Number 8. We're going to talk about twists in this one. I had a really hard time choosing between 9 and 8. So I kind of went, all right, well, we'll go alphabetically. Donnie Darko is number 8. I've never seen Brokeback Mountain, because to me, Jake Gyllenhaal is Donnie Darko. I will never, and I was like, no, that's Donnie Darko, and I'm not going to watch a movie that's going to ruin Donnie Darko for me. No. So that was one of my main reasons among many for looking at Brokeback Mountain and thinking, I don't think I need to see that movie. I don't have, and everybody talked about how brave it was and how, but what I said at the time, and I'll repeat it here, is if Brokeback Mountain was made and it starred Carmen Electra and Pamela Anderson at the time. I don't know that it would have been considered brave. It would have been considered vulgar and over the top, and oh, here we go again. But because it was two guys, it was considered really brave. And because Donnie Darko was one of the two guys, I went, no. No. Donnie Darko and again, any movie you see in this top 10, I'll sit down and watch right now. No problem at all. Load it in the Blu-ray player. I'm there. I'm good. Excellent. Cool. Fun. Fantastic. And if it's in the top 20, they're movies that I kind of insist on talking to people as I get to know them better, and I'll say, have you seen any of these movies? And if they say no, I've never seen that, I'm like, why haven't you seen that movie? I treat them like they're an alien. I'm like, you've never seen it? And with Idiocracy, I usually get, I've never heard of that before. Okay, I'm going to get you a copy of that movie. And I've literally bought, I think, 4 copies of Idiocracy so people could watch it. So the fact that I've bought copies of movies for people, almost as if it's my own personal, like, Gideon's Bible, tells you just how much I must love these movies to put them ahead. And Donnie Darko, I've bought a copy of that for somebody too, because anybody who hasn't seen it, I'm like, why haven't you seen it? Yvonne and I tried watching it once. She fell asleep halfway through, and it kind of broke my heart. I was like, oh, because she's never seen it, and she fell asleep halfway through, and I was like, oh, I'm gutted that you're sleeping through this fantastic, beautiful, wonderful, epic movie, which has so many stirring and emotional moments, and then it has this great atmospheric ending that leaves things open. And maybe the sequel, oh god, they made a sequel, oh Samantha Darko, oh no, they did it, oh, they tried to ruin it. Never watched Samantha Darko either. I never saw it. I don't understand why people watch crappy sequels, and they'll do it. They'll be like, well, I saw the first one, so I figured I'd watch this one. Well, right away, it's your mistake, because if the sequel is subpar, we live in the internet age where it'll tell you that a movie's subpar. You can see the ratings, and you can look at the ratings for the original movie you watched and see that it's not the same quality, so therefore, ergo, just stay away from it, because then it doesn't have to taint your memory of what a beautiful, wonderful movie the original was. And that's what bad sequels do. Thanks, Matrix. Thanks. Number 7. Oh wait, I've got two comedies still to come. Office Space. If not for swearing, Office Space would be pretty much a G-rated movie. It is, and I've worked in an office. I spent about 7 years working in an office. This is pretty much it. This is pretty much how it works. You spend your day sitting around talking about how management's screwing everybody over, and how much work sucks, and how much you don't want to be there, and you're tired of sitting on your ass. But you don't really want to get up and do anything either. But you can sit and complain though. Complaining's fun. And I really identified with Peter. There's that line. Well, Peter, it looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately. I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob. Yeah, we've all wanted to do that. We've all wanted to go into the office, throw down a dead fish, and gut it right at our desk. I would love to have done that. And I don't gut fish, but I would absolutely have loved to have done that. And Peter lives the dream. And the part with the hypnotherapist when he's still dazed and the hypnotherapist keels over, it's everything that happens from there is absolutely perfect. Everything that happens before that is really funny. And again, this is Mike Judge. This is Mike Judge of Idiocracy. So Mike Judge has 2 movies in the top 20. And if Beavis and Butthead had more of an endearing message to its movie, it would probably be in the top 50 as well. Mike Judge always seemed like a guy that I would really get along with if I talked to him in person. And he has a role in Office Space where he is the manager at Tchotchkes. And at Tchotchkes, people come in because they want to see flair. They want attitude, and attitude means flair. So he thought he had a conversation with her about her flair, and he noticed she's still wearing the bare minimum. So if you want to do the bare minimum, that's okay. But at Tchotchkes, they really want to see you express yourself, so they encourage that. And then, of course, she hilariously expresses herself the second time he brings it up. And she, in that scene, kind of, I think, speaks for a lot of servers, people who have service jobs, which are really thankless and really full of obnoxious people. In this day and age of the Me Too and all this stuff, I think, man, there's some waitresses somewhere that have some really big horror stories they're going to share with the world soon. And Office Space, I think Jennifer Aniston's character speaks for everybody. But the casting's on point, the movie's on point. It's great. So again, if you haven't seen Office Space, it's a little dated because they're talking about updating software for the Y2K switch. But take that out and just remember, in an office situation with cubicles, it's that part is timeless because that job sucks. It just sucks. Number 6. This is the last of the comedies. From here on, there will be no laughing. And Groundhog Day is my favorite comedy ever. The first time I watched Groundhog Day, I had no concept of how good it was going to be. I knew that he's living the same day over and over again, but to me in the commercial, I'm like, oh, so it's Bill Murray being obnoxious. What else is new? Okay, fine. I'll watch it. I don't think I'm going to like it much. And I think the first time that I watched it, I ended up watching it, I think, 2 or 3 times the first time I rented it. And I ended up wanting to watch it a lot. Groundhog Day is it has this endearing and timeless is big for me on my lists because when a movie feels dated, it can be hard to get through. Looking at Pretty in Pink here, but Groundhog Day is timeless. It doesn't matter. Like, no, there's no cell phones and whatever, and you can kind of take a look at that and go, it's so old. But it's not, though, because it just tells this story of small town, Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. Punxsutawney Phil, who still comes out to see if he sees his sees his shadow every Groundhog's Day. And the idea that he's reliving the same day over and over again. And I think where the movie really wins me over is he thinks he's got it figured out. And he doesn't. So he gets what he thinks is probably the perfect day, and it fails. And he gives up. And it's when he gives up and he just decides, you know what, to hell with it. I'm just gonna do all this other crap. I'm gonna save some people's lives if I gotta. I'm gonna help these old ladies change tire on their car. He finally gets it by not trying to. And there's an endearing quality to Bill Murray in this movie. And Andie MacDowell is delightful. Andie MacDowell is a very underrated actress for her generation. Sex, Lies, and Videotape is a good movie of hers. Again, it's not on the list, but Sex, Lies, and Videotape is a much better movie than I think I expected. And I think part of what dragged that movie down in the day when it came out is the title. Because it makes it sound really seedy and really kind of gross. And I think it's because James Spader was in it too. So you hear the name, you see James Spader, and you go, oh, this is going to be one of those gross movies. But it's not. And Andie MacDowell pulled that one off, and Andie MacDowell is delightful in this. You believe Bill Murray falls in love with her. Absolutely. Completely. Number 5. Now that we're done laughing, we're going to get into the movies that it's really hard for me to drive a wedge and figure out where they are. Number 5 is The Force Awakens. I know this is a divisive movie, and I know there's a lot of people who say, well, it just rehashes Star Wars. It does Star Wars a lot better than Star Wars. There's some new characters introduced, and what the difference for me between the prequels and what was done in Episode 7 is they introduced characters that to me felt three-dimensional and better. And I've heard all the Mary Sue arguments about Rey, and I know I've read through all of the talk about how much people hated the movie, and I've read all of the rebukes of all the hatred it gets. And I know the online community still argues about whether this is a good movie or it isn't. For me, it's fantastic. It's never going to be what George Lucas envisioned because it's evolved from that. It's changed. George Lucas brought them scripts for 7, 8, and 9, at least outlines, and Disney went, not for us. This is not what we bought the property for. And hearing the ideas that he had for 7, 8, and 9, I'm glad that they went the route that they did. Because I think if they'd gone 7, 8, and 9, I really think it would have been tough to watch. And I think they would have been in the same region as the prequels. And I think it would have further tarnished the original trilogy. This pays homage to the original trilogy. The Last Jedi tries to take it in a new direction, heading for something completely different. It's going to alienate people, but it's also going to bring new fans in. And then there's the fan service of Obi-Wan and the Han Solo movies and the rumored Boba Fett movie and the rumored Yoda movie. But while those are all fan service, and I agree that it's kind of a cheap money-making ploy, there's enough new characters for us to care about that I think we'll see more offshoots from these. There's another trilogy coming, which is not going to be episodes 10, 11, and 12, but it's going to be a new Star Wars trilogy. And I think that's going to be fun. And it's going to be from Last Jedi, that planet where you saw all the gambling going on. That's the seed of what's coming up with the next trilogy. The idea of who benefits from war, and the idea that the financiers behind this war that's gone on for decades in the Star Wars universe, that they're financing both sides. So there's another story to be told, and The Force Awakens opened us up to that universe, and I'm very grateful for its existence. Number 4. Boy, you want to go with divisive. I know what you do. You do the Star Trek reboot. Star Trek was rebooted, and when I heard they were rebooting it and they were recasting Spock, I was concerned. I was concerned because I didn't feel like anybody could be Spock that was Leonard Nimoy's character. Then they said Zachary Quinto was playing the character, and I went, well, I've watched some of Heroes. Heroes is mostly garbage, but some episodes of Heroes are fantastic enough that you get through the garbage to get there. And it was smart. It started with a simple message of save the cheerleader, save the world. And then they bring in Zachary Quinto as this pretty evil bad guy who, by the end of the series, was just a joke. He was a joke. But Star Trek, the movie, it reboots the whole thing. It brings new people to the cast. And while I understand some of the criticism, there's criticisms of this. Uhura now is this genius xenolinguist. Well, she'd have to be in this universe. Why would she be the communications officer if she couldn't speak Klingon? Like, in the original movies, which I have had on this chart, and Star Trek movies are fantastic starring the original cast, the idea that you've got to kind of make all of them super and awesome makes sense. It's the flagship of the Federation. They should be the very best at what they do. So the fact that when this movie was made, there's a lot of lens flares, and I get that part too. But I totally am in agreement with the idea that these people should be the very best in their field to be on the Enterprise. This is why when she sees that she's not on the Enterprise, Uhura goes and argues to Spock that she belongs in the Enterprise, and she talks him into it because she's the best at what she does. And that's the whole dividing line between whether you are or you're not on that ship. So that for me, I don't see that as a plot hole or as something stupid they did, but it's fantastic. Number 3. I like movies that surprise me, and I like movies that keep me guessing. And Inception does that. Inception is one of the most amazing visual spectacles I've ever witnessed. The idea of going into someone's dreams and planting a thought there that they believe is theirs and changing their whole world. Is it silly? Probably. Is the way that they execute it baffling? Probably. Do they really get into dream architecture? They kind of do, but they kind of don't at the same time. And yet, it's fine because it's dreams. Dreams are supposed to be sort of ambiguous anyways. And the dreams in this movie are very ambiguous, and the ending of the movie is intentionally ambiguous. The question of, so wait, at the end, is it resolved, is it not? I think it is. But I can understand why other people say it isn't, and I've read theories on both sides, because when you get into these movies, it's fun to go onto message boards or onto websites and see all these crazy ideas of how good or how bad some of these movies are. But I recommend it for Fight Club, Donnie Darko, Star Trek, Force Awakens, and Inception. And the darker side of Groundhog Day, because there's some dark sides in that one too. But Inception, just there's this wonderful beauty in that how it's told, and there's a reason for each character having the name they have. There are godly reasons for that, and you can look into the mythology that is explored. Why his wife's name is Mal, for instance, and that he is led through by Ariadne out of this. I think it was Ariadne, wasn't it? Yvonne? Mm-hmm. The main girl, played by Ellen Page. It's Ariadne. Oh. I want to say. I don't remember. Because each character in the movie has like a mythological name, and there's a mythological reason behind it. Right. And he is being taunted by Mal, which is Greek for bad, I want to say. Yes. And that's.
I remember that one because. Okay.
Right, but there's all the other characters that go through it, and they all have godly names. Anyways, so yeah, Inception is, for me, just it is an amazing movie, and the first time I watched it, I was completely blown away, and I've watched it so many times, and it is the best waste of 2.5 hours you can find. It is absolutely wonderful from start to finish. It is an epic journey, and does it make sense in the end? Probably not. Does it matter? Not really. It's just genius. And then Rick and Morty did a great send up on it. Rick and Morty's send up on Inception, I have to admit, was fantastic. That's where Scary Terry comes in and that whole bit. And it's hilarious and funny because every step along the way, Rick says, Morty, if this doesn't make sense, then neither does your stupid movie Inception. So you have to go along with this, or your movie doesn't make any sense. It's pretty awesome stuff. All right, number 2. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. The greatest space battles in the history of movies. Wrath of Khan, space is 3D. Nicholas Meyer got this, and I talked about it when I talked about Star Trek VI. Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, there's a reason that Into Darkness was a Khan movie. There's a reason that when they did the reboot of Star Trek, they couldn't wait to get back into the Khan story, because Khan's this great villain. Khan was a great villain when played by Ricardo Montalban. Benedict Cumberbatch is a fantastic actor. He's not Khan. Only Ricardo Montalban could be. And the way that he's portrayed by Benedict Cumberbatch is totally different. As I said in the Into Darkness review, or when I was talking about it here, if he had played a brand new villain, it would have been a much better movie. Into Darkness would have been a fantastic movie. He was a brand new villain, and we didn't know him, and we didn't know his story. Wrath of Khan ruins Into Darkness. Kirk is just... William Shatner gets a lot of flack for how he played Kirk. And I understand it, because in the 60s series, which... Come on, look at the special effects, and look at the costumes, and look at the whole thing. This was not a serious series. But in this movie, he's very, very good. William Shatner's fantastic in Wrath of Khan. His acting is on point. This is another example of how, if sci-fi and horror movies were taken seriously by the Academy, we'd have much more fun watching the Academy Awards. The Oscars would be really, really fun for everybody if they would admit that some movies that are really popular, they're really popular because they're really good movies. And you don't have to just shunt them aside because they happen to be science fiction and have spaceships in them. Wrath of Khan is one of the most perfect movies in history, period. It is, from its start to its finish, every shot is perfect. And even the bugs in the ears part, which always makes me queasy, and I'll be honest, I still don't watch that part for the most part. I wait till Khan's got he's got the, and then I'm like, all right, I'm out till they get their helmets on. I'm good. Once their helmets are on and we get past that part, we're good. When they're falling out of the ears later, it's but when they're going in, nah, I'm good. I'll talk to you guys later. I'll just call me back in the room when that's over. And it's still it's a fantastic movie with some of the best performances ever. Wrath of Khan is what Star Trek the Motion Picture should have been. Star Trek the Motion Picture was slow, and it's a long movie. And there's some great special effects in there. And I don't hate Star Trek the Motion Picture. It gets a lot of hatred from people. I enjoy it for what it is, which is an attempt by Star Trek. An attempt by Star Trek to be kind of 2001. Clearly, the director, the writer, they were like, 2001's this big thing, we got to jump on it. And they tried, but Star Trek the Motion Picture fell by the wayside. Interesting thing about Star Trek the Motion Picture, the theme music from it is the same theme music as Star Trek Next Generation. And I believe they tried using it again for Star Trek Final Frontier. Meaning if you make a bad Star Trek movie, go ahead and use the Next Generation music because nobody will remember later. But Wrath of Khan is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Leonard Nimoy at the end of the movie, it's just heartbreaking. So Wrath of Khan's number 2. So you guys should know what's number 1. For people who...
Sound of Music.
Empire Strikes Back. Now, I did a video not that long ago where I tore Empire Strikes Back apart. And the AT-ATs are really, really useless vehicles. They would cost a tremendous amount of money. They move very slowly. They give your enemy plenty of notice that you're there, when instead you could get your own version of snow speeders, go down, destroy them all, blow up the generator, have Vader come down and completely wipe out the rebellion. The Empire would have won the war much, much quicker if it wasn't just trying to make really big, slow-moving vehicles and instead just tried to blow everything up. Clearly, there was some sort of an inferiority complex, sort of that male inferiority thing that happens, where guys are obsessed with size, that kind of thing. Clearly, the Empire had that going on. But Empire Strikes Back is, for my money, still the best movie ever, and it's dark but not too dark, and it's fun, and it is the reason that Star Wars is still a huge deal. Star Wars, the original movie, was a fine, great movie in and of itself, but if Empire had been any kind of a letdown, or if Empire had just been kind of a fluff piece, sort of like Star Wars really is, the original Star Wars, I don't think we're still talking about Star Wars movies. I don't think I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt 30-some years later. I think we're talking about how, well, that was a fun little trilogy, and yeah, and then it was done. Empire just added so many layers to what Star Wars is. It added so much darkness to that whole universe. It made us realize that this wasn't just good, bad, good, bad, and that there was a shade of gray in there that we hadn't realized in the original movie. Because the original movie, it's basically just like an old Western or an old World War II movie, and that's kind of what he was going for. He was going for a Flash Gordon kind of feel with the original movie. And just he couldn't get the rights to any of the big name franchises, so he just made up his own characters. And Star Wars was born, but Empire is so much more than that, and it is it's gritty. It's the reason we all love Han Solo so much, and the reason that we started really liking Luke. If you look at the original Star Wars movie, Luke's just kind of a whiny farm boy that doesn't seem to appreciate anything that's going on for him. That if he'd been home with Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, he would have been dead. So there's no appreciation from him towards Obi-Wan for the most part, and he just kind of whines and mopes his way through the movies, sort of like Anakin does with the previews or with the prequels. But Empire, he's this nice, darker, brooding kind of character, and he's not whiny as much. And the Wampa Cave, everything that happens in that movie, it's this wonderful progression. There are a couple of parts that I still to this day kind of go, well, wait, what? Like when the Empire is invading the base and the rebels are just kind of taking off, and they're like, yeah, I'll see you at the rendezvous point. It's like, isn't there still like an Empire like 10 feet away from you guys? Shouldn't you guys be moving a little faster? But other than that, I love Empire. And I love Empire enough to say that this was tough. I would say this top 5 is when I started to really have a conniption fit. Because sci-fi. I do consider Inception science fiction. So picking between these 5 movies is really like picking between children. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And there it is, my top 200 movies. And we're done. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.